Well, ladies and gentlemen, can I give you the good news, which is that our panelists are sitting ready to talk to you. The bad news is, of course, is that in order to talk to you, we are going to have to shorten the lunch break.
No, actually, we will lengthen up until it has to be 1.5 hours.
Oh, I'm sorry, it has to be 1.5 hours. We're in France, aren't we? Of course, yes. It has to be 1.5 hours. So but either way, we have to finish by
1.
By 1 o'clock. I've worked out, therefore, that in the time available, 12:13 on the clock, if our 4 panelists have their 10 minutes, and I just speak for a very few minutes, then there should be a chance for 1 or 2 questions, providing they are questions and not statements, I'm afraid. What this panel is looking at, of course, is the issue of databases and about information. And we have 4 experts here to give you their views. How do we combine the information that we have? How do we make it work for us all? How do we find technology that works for us? Actually, I believe it's not a technology problem. It's much more an issue about the people who are responsible for each of these areas. But I'm sure that will all be explained to us. So our program, as you can see, we have 4 experts, and I'm proposing that they go in and speak in the order which are in your program. And first of all, we're going to have Lieutenant Colonel Pantelis Telmis, who is a Lieutenant Colonel. He's not on his... it is. There it says Lieutenant Colonel, who is from the Disaster Victims Identification Unit of the Hellenic Police. And he was the one who deployed straight after the mass shipwreck, which we've heard about this morning on the Greek coast. Then it should be followed by Dr. Susan Hitchin, who is from Interpol and is responsible for the DNA unit there and coordinates that, having spent, I think, 3 decades working, nearly 3 decades, two decades working for Interpol. There we go, close. And then we're followed by 2 colleagues from Spain, Patricia Berchena Garcia, who is the 2nd deputy of the Spanish Ombudsman, who's the Defensor del Pueblo, the public defender. And then finally, Dr. Jose Prieto, who is the head of Forensic Pathology Department at the Institute of Forensic Medicine and Forensic Science in Madrid. So I'm trying to go on as quickly as possible. So, Lieutenant Colonel Pantelis Temelis, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Pantelis Temelis. I'm the commander of the Greek DVI team and also Police Lieutenant Colonel. We are here today. We will give you a presentation about the deployment of the DVI Greek team regarding the Pylos shipwreck. Mr. Maniatis already mentioned a lot of information about the shipwreck, so we'll skip a lot of all of that, and we'll focus on the collection of AM and PM data and all the challenges, all the lessons identified over there from our side. Okay, can I use? Okay, we have a remote, sorry, okay. So about what we will see in my presentation, we'll speak about a little bit about our team, the shipwreck itself, the recovery phase, the M phase, PM phase, the reconciliation, the challenges, and then the lessons identified. I will be very brief. Okay.
Don't speak too fast.
Yeah, of course. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, I've forgotten we have the interpreter. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Just okay. As a DVI team, we're an ad hoc team. We're not have a permanent structure, so when something occurs, then we're assembling and deployment to the field. We have established on July 2018, and we have undertaking the humanitarian task of the identification of the deceased ones. The majority of the members, they are policemen from a Coast Guard, fire service, forensic experts, and some psychologists or whatever. We have already mentioned the information about the shipwreck, so I'll skip all that. There's the map, the vessel itself, and about our team. On June 14, after the demand of the Coast Guard, the chief of Hellenic Police was give us the okay, let's say, to go for our team to be deployment and to be assigned and to conduct all the relevant actions regarding the handling of the shipwreck and the identification of the deceased ones. I have to say, after some other incidents that occurred in the past in the Greece, like the wildfires in 2018 and train collision, we act as the management of the death and not as a DVI itself. Okay, we follow the guidelines of the ICRC, so we're dealing with the management of the death, not just the DVI tasks. So it was very crucial and it was very helpful for us in order to achieve the results that we have in this case. Many of our members, they are both acting as members of the recovery team, the reconciliation team, the AM team, and the PM team. They are not, say, permanent members, but we have to dispatch people from other services, from our daily duties, from fire service, Coast Guard, or whatever. It's not an easy task, okay? Because we're very few people. We have a daily life. It's not an easy task to dispatch the people from their daily life in order to be deployed in Kalamata and in other areas. Our task on the site at the port of Kalamata was the recovery of the bodies. It's not also an easy task in order to be deployment on the naval vessels or the vessels of the Coast Guard and to coordinate all this effort in order to recover the bodies and to proceed with the immediately tagging and the fingerprint of the bodies at the port. Because we have seen, due to the advanced saponification, we have to perform like that. It's also not an easy task to act like that because we have some issues with the jurisdictions, how to dispatch people from other cities to go over there, like fingerprint experts, to act like that. So to have the jurisdiction to act let's say, like the management of the dead, it was very helpful for us. Also present, we have a team of psychologists in order to support the survivors. We have proceeded immediately with interview of all the survivors in order to understand what is happening, what we're dealing on. In cooperation with the Minister of the Asylum, we have established and called the reception center. It was also very helpful. From June 16 until the end of September, it was acting like a call center, an info center, and also a reception center for relevant from missing ones and deceased ones from all around Europe. As already mentioned by Mr. Maniatis, the communication took place in English, Arabic, Pashto, Urdu, French, Turkish, and other languages. We have some issues with Arabic language due to there is some misunderstandings due that the Arabic languages were widespread. You have to, let's say, have interpreters focused on the area of the origin of the countries, like, let's say, from Egypt, Syria, or whatever. At the same time, at the facilities of the Ministry of Migration, we have collected some DNA samples from relatives, but they were not, let's say, first-degree relatives, but second degree or whatever. But we acted like that, and it was also very helpful for us because we have also been able to, let's say, to locate it, the areas of the missing ones or the deceased ones, in order to focus, in order to seek for the relatives. Psychologists also was present to provide its services to the family members and the relatives and the friends. It was very crucial, also already mentioned, the establishment of the call and the reception center. Due to the fact that many of the origin countries, we have to be aware as a team what is happening in all those areas. We have to be aware of the history, of the disputes, or whatever. So the establishment of this call center and the host center for us with direct telephone lines, with any mail. And the key issue was the establishment of a WhatsApp line because the relatives, they do not have always access to the telephone lines or they're not familiar with the use of email or whatever. But more or less, all of us will have some, let's say, familiarization with the use of with our mobile phones and the WhatsApp line in order to send some pictures, other data like passports, ID details or whatever. We have involved, of course, also the embassies of the survivors, of the victims of the origins and the resident countries, Egypt, Pakistan, Syria, Jordan, and India. National and international organizations like Interpol was very useful, the SRC community, the ICMP, and other ones. Various national stakeholders, coroner's office, the civil protection, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and etc. Also, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was the official channel of communication for all the involved countries. We have also launched some info campaigns via Ministry of Foreign Affairs about what is happening and what is the official channels and what is, let's say, the telephone lines and what are the ways that will deploy our action as a DVI team. And also it was very useful to get into touch and launch all these info campaigns with other channels that are not official ones, like we're all familiar, like we're policemen, okay, but we're now knowledge that all the migrants, they have established some WhatsApp groups and they're talking what is happening. So in order to avoid some fake news, we have also conducted some informant of us and launched all these info campaigns over there, what is happening, and also it was very useful. Okay, so you have to be flexible. Okay, of course we were in touch with other DVI teams in EU countries, and also the direct cooperation with embassies and the developed countries was crucial. Okay. We have also mentioned all these numbers. We have recorded in total 82 bodies. 74 have been identified with a DNA certificate. 2 more they will come, and hopefully, under the new development of in the Syria with a new government, hopefully we will come up with the remaining 6 people that were identified, because we have some clue that probably they are Syrians. Okay. So until today, the efforts for the Pilos shipwreck and the Evros Gold Fire is under development from us, from our side. You can see the numbers over there. In total, 771 persons were on board. Okay, the challenges that we have to overcome. The lack of interpreters on the spot. Okay. The interpreters were unfamiliar with the interview process of the relatives. Okay, it's not an easy task. Also, the rotation of the interpreters, because always have to collaborate with new interpreters that were coming from different NGOs. So probably me, I will be present at the call and the reception host center for 3-4 days, and after the first and the second day, the interpreters were familiar and were in a position to conduct the interviews, but after a while we have then to collaborate with new ones, and also very challenging and time-consuming. Also some issues with Arabic language, misinterpretations, and linguistic issues. The communication issues with the relatives of the missing ones, so they were not in the position to call us directly. They don't have access to internet, and of course all the lines and also the email were overwhelmed, were thousands of inputs. Some intellectual issues, the understanding what is a deceased one, what is presumed dead, what is a missing one. It's not an easy task to understand the relatives, what is happening, what is the terms of this. And of course, many of them, they are familiar with email, and this is the crucial, the establishment of the WhatsApp line in order to exchange all the data we have requested for them, like passports, ID details, photos, or whatever. The antemortem phase in the orange carriages is also very challenging because there's no lack of, they have the lack of DVI teams and expertise over there. Also the facilitation of DNA sampling and analysis process, because they will establish, let's say, one center in the capital of the country. It's not easy to every one of the relatives of the missing ones to go to the capital and to give an interview and to give a DNA sample. The collection of AM data and the ID details is also very challenging. We have seen and come up with so many different ID details, even in official documents for the same persons, different ID details in the ID, in the passport or whatever. And also the communication through the embassies in Athens is also very challenging because they were not familiar also, the liaisons over there, with the DVI process. Okay, in certain countries like Syria and Afghanistan, the lack of official focal points showed and present us difficulties of informing properly the relatives of the missing ones, and the establishing of the right procedures, which made the implementation of the M process impossible without the aid of Interpol and of course the International Committee of Red Cross and Red Crescent and some other NGOs. Especially with Syria, we were very, very flexible. We have exploited even some, let's say, other unofficial channels via various NGOs and some other channels like, I don't know, said the right word, they have, let's say, to give us the authorization, they gave an authorization to send some lawyers in the Athens to present them as legal, let's say, legal advisors for them. So via them we have able to collect some DNA samples, some ID details or whatever. Because also many of the relatives, especially with the Syria, they were reluctant to collaborate with the Hellenic police, with the DVI team. Okay, maybe will give us some, let's say, a call, but they were not reluctant to give us some ID details or to provide us with a DNA sample or whatever. There is fear over there, we can understand that. So especially with Syria, we were very flexible. Also, some challenges with the Syrians that were activated and replied very late. It was on August. The shipwreck occurred on June, and at the 8th, let's say it was after 20th of August, something like that, in order to reply and collaborate with us. And then we have started to proceed the facilitation of the DNA sampling and the analysis process with the Syrian authorities. Of course, they have a lack of a certified DNA lab. It's also very challenging, the cooperation with the lab over there. Of course, the collection of the data and the details also very challenging, as already mentioned, but the communication via Interpol and other stakeholders, it was very successful, I can say, with the collaboration with Syria for us. Okay, we have already mentioned all of the stuff. Some key lessons that they have identified is the establishment of a call of a host center of the country that is handling with the situation, like Greece. So you have to establish your own call and host center. Is very mandatory, and you have to exploit all the various channels of communication, like we have already mentioned, with email, telephone lines, WhatsApp lines, or whatever. Also, some other key issue is the Arabic language interpreters focus on we have to focus on the origin areas, the regions of the world that are the missing ones, because they have the understanding is very, very challenging. You know, they use different words. The interpretation, they were very challenging to understand. Let's say we have a call from Morocco if the interpreter was from Syria or whatever, as an example. The cooperation with the regional countries of the missing ones is very crucial, of course, and the authorization of the Greek DVI team to deal with the management of the dead, not just the DVI, just the identification of the deceased ones, it's also very crucial. So we're able to mobilize the vessels, mobilize resources from the police, fire service, or whatever. But always have to, to collaborate with the chiefs of the police, of what is happening over there, what is your need of the daily lives, what you can exploit, or whatever. But this authorization, it was very crucial. Also, we have seen that the training is very crucial, but because if you are willing to deal with a disaster, you have to improve your everyday life, let's say, dealing with the everyday life issues that are happening, not major shipwrecks, what was happening over there. So we have also seen that in Our first responders that are based on the islands, let's say that at the borders, every 3 years we need a tailor-made training course for them over there. We have the rotation of the personnel over there. So we have started, acted like that. So tailor-made and training courses about the dealing of daily life issues and of course the disasters. And also we have seen that in other areas of the world, the DVI guidelines that have launched from Interpol and we follow, it's not working. Okay, so we also need some tailor-made training courses and DVI courses over there, just for the collection of AIM data. Because if the neighborhood address, like in Africa, Middle East or whatever, they are be able to establish a reception and call center over there and to collect with a proper way all the details and DNA samples and send us to us, in the future, they will have lift a huge, let's say, weight from our shoulders. That's it for me. Hopefully it was brief.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful for that. I think I take away from that there's a huge number of people, organisations, actors involved in everything that you do when you come to dealing with a disaster of this case. The importance of WhatsApp and Signal, I think, hasn't been lost on us because we use it probably all of our times, and it's clearly probably one of the principal methods of communication between anybody and everywhere very quickly anyway. And we're going to ask Patricia Bartena now if you could tell us what's happening in your world of Spain.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. Thank you for organizing this event and for your participation, especially Spanish representation. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I would like to explain to you what the Ombudsman does in Spain, because I think that the Spanish Ombudsman is a little different than other European Ombudsman. Our institution has three roles. First is the High Commissioner of Parliament, in charge of basic rights and civil liberties. This duty is carried out by monitoring the administration's activity. The second role is of the national institution rights recognized by the United Nations. As you know, national human rights institutions are bodies whose mission is to protect and promote human rights in a given country. They must comply with the standard of Paris principles. Lastly, the Spanish Parliament gave the Ombudsman its third role in November 2009, the National Mechanism for the Prevention of Torture and Other Inhuman or Degrading Treatment. As the national mechanism against torture, we make a preventive visit to all detention centers to detect problems that may lead to impunity for torture or abuse. Every year, the Ombudsman prepares a detailed annual report and presents it to the Spanish Parliament and the United Nations Committee for the Prevention of Torture. Now, who can file a complaint to the Ombudsman? Any citizen, Spanish or foreign, regardless of age or legal status in Spain, may submit a complaint to the Ombudsman. This complaint can be filed individually or as a group. I should also point out that the Ombudsman can intervene ex officio in cases where we consider that there may be a serious problem or that affect a significant number of citizens. Finally, so our mandate, what is the Ombudsman mandate? The Ombudsman is bound to act independence and transparency, and the public authorities have a legal duty to collaborate with us. Our mandate is not jurisdictional. When a problem is in the courts, the Ombudsman doesn't intervene, and the supervision is non-binding. We cannot modify or annul the acts and resolution of public administration. We cannot give them orders. However, if we conclude that the constitutional rights have been violated, we can suggest or recommend that any administration take steps to rectify the issue. The second question is, what is our role? No? What is the Spanish Ombudsman role regarding migration? As mentioned before and yesterday, death and disappearances of migrants attempting to reach European coast have been an ongoing tragedy for years. This has been particularly visible this past year in Canary Island. As you know, obtaining data and information in this area is particularly complex. However, the International Organization of Migration estimates that since the first shipwreck in Spain was documented in 1988, more than 9,000 people have lost their lives on migratory routes to our country. In this context, it's necessary to recall that all signatory countries, including Spain, to the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration have a duty to supervise migration policy and to protect migrants. In response to the rise in disappearance along the migrant routes, effective mechanisms must be established to identify death or missing person, to collect and share information, and to inform families or relatives. In this regard, the Spanish Ombudsman initiated proceedings in 2023 with all relevant authorities to improve the Spanish administration response to this problem. For instance, we sent a recommendation to the Secretary of State for Security on the importance of mobilizing resources needed to identify missing persons in events with multiple victims. We also recommended that procedures be established to enable families to register the disappearance of their relatives in an accessible, secure, and confidential way. We also advise that the migrant contact officer be appointed to facilitate the necessary cooperation between countries of origin and transit. I'm sorry for my voice. Additionally, in 2024, we initiated actions with other authorities, such as General Directorate for the Public Service of Justice. Our aim was to adopt a specific national protocol for forensic, medical, and scientific police, when identifying corpses and human remains. For this purpose, we considered the publication of an action guide to facilitate the preservation and collection of data by persons or entities that locate human remains. We also propose that a national forensic database or platform be developed to register and track information relating to human remains of an unknown identity, and that mechanisms be put in place to facilitate to this information for other databases for missing persons and human remains. We also requested that the necessary step be taken to promote to use a common terminology by the different institutes in the collection and recordings of information on these findings and in the various existing databases. These recommendations were formulated after verifying that the treatment and registration of human remains continue to be very uneven in absence of a specific guidelines for this case, and that there isn't a common terminology. In fact, the difficulties in the identification process are made worse by limited access to anthropometric records in the countries of origin, and because it is hard to obtain trusted samples from reference relatives for genetic matching. As for remains, the proper gathering for samples and their traceability via morgue will allow families to locate their loved ones' remains in a future match arises in genetic database where this information has been recorded. Another problematic issue is the cremation of incineration and unidentified bodies due to the implication it may have for the exercise of religious freedoms and because it's irreversible. This consideration are reflected in a general action protocol, but our current concern is that it be complied with. Additionally, the Ombudsman must emphasize the need to improve communication via diplomatic and consular channels to inform the families and relatives in the origin countries and to provide the information required to initiate a shared procedure. To this end, we initiate actions with the Directorate General for Spaniards Abroad and Consular Affairs. So far, we haven't had an affirmative reply. Finally, a few words about safe reporting, a remaining challenge. The United Nations Committee on Enforced Disappearance recognized the vulnerability of migrants as well as their relatives, who may also be migrants, and the obstacles and discrimination they encounter when searching for their missing loved ones. The Spanish Ombudsman has recommended that national authorities ensure that undocumented foreigners who are presumed victims of crime can file a police complaint without being subject to detention that could lead to their deportation. Reporting to law enforcement bodies could constitute a risk for survivors and their relatives. In such cases, a humanitarian approach and coordination should prevail. This remains a challenge today. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Patricia. That was very interesting about the route that perhaps the Ombudsman is pushing public authorities in Spain, and one will need to keep an eye on in the future as an example. And now, Dr. Prieto, the floor is yours to tell us all the interesting work you're doing in forensics.
Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers, Julian Palke and the Council of Europe, for the organization of this event, this conference, this important conference, and particularly to Marie Martin for the kind invitation to take part in the conference. This way, having the opportunity of sharing with all of you the challenges that we face in Spain from the perspective of the forensic services in relation to the issue of missing migrants. This is one part of the puzzle, but I think this is an essential piece of the puzzle. The work that we done from the forensic services to get the proper management and identification of unidentified dead bodies in general, as Tanya talked before, is not only a question of missing migrants, although we are here talking about missing migrants, but it's also something to talk about unidentified dead bodies. Marie, how can I? Okay, thank you. So let me begin explaining very briefly. I know this is very basic for most of you, but I think that it is important especially for the parliamentarians to know the basics, to better understand the real challenges that we face from the forensic services when we deal with these cases of unidentified dead bodies and particularly unidentified dead migrants. And to understand also the different actions that we are involved now trying to improve at least the task, the work that forensic doctors have in these issues. So this is essentially a process of comparison. We compare information related to missing persons, in this particular case, missing migrants, with data obtained from the forensic examination of unidentified dead bodies. This comparison includes different types of information, such as physical characteristics, fingerprints, personal belongings, dental records, DNA profiles, but much more others. And we do this with a goal of finding matches, finding coincidences strong enough to assign a name beyond a reasonable doubt. That is the base. In migration context, the information we deal with has unique challenges that you can read on the slide that makes it different of conventional DVI operations and deserve different approaches to these cases, although, of course, there are some common tools that we can also use in both cases. So to build an effective response to this challenge, there are at least 3 key elements that we need to have in place. First, all actors in data collection, whether forensic doctors, police, NGOs, or international bodies, must collect the same kind of information following standardized procedures. Second, all this information should be centralized in dedicated and specialized databases accessible to the main stakeholders. And third, the exchange of information must occur within clear legal framework so that any identification can be formally accepted in legal proceedings. So in Spain, the forensic medical system is organized at the national level and composed of forensic doctors who belong to the Ministry of Justice. We are responsible for conducting forensic investigations in all cases of violent or suspicious death, including all deaths occurring in the context of migration, as mandated by judicial authorities. And we are also responsible of the identification of deceased persons and human remains. There are currently 32 medical legal institutes across the country, at least one in each region, in each autonomous community, as well as in the autonomous cities of Ceuta and Melilla, 2 of the places more affected by the issue of dead migrants and unidentified dead bodies. These institutes are supported by a National Institute of National Toxicology and Forensic Science, also belong to the Ministry of Justice, which is the reference center for forensic laboratory analysis, including DNA testing. And there is also a National Forensic Medical Council under the Ministry of Justice, whose functions include harmonizing procedures and issuing technical recommendations for all forensic institutions. However, despite this, at least apparently, a strong institutional framework, there are still major limitations in Spain when it comes to the identification of deceased migrants. There is no national migration-specific protocol to ensure the proper management of dead bodies and human remains. Moreover, there is no standardized procedure to coordinate with NGOs or other civil society actors involved in missing migrants data collection, including the Spanish Red Cross, although an agreement was signed in 2017 between the Ministry of Justice and the Spanish Red Cross, but in practice, it has proven to be largely ineffective. This lack of coordination causes uncertainty, and to me, this is one of the key points. And some forensic doctors have even faced legal consequences for sharing information in good faith with individuals who later use this information to extort families of the deceased. This highlights the urgent need for clear legal safeguards and protocols to protect both families and professionals involved. Another serious limitation is the absence of a shared national tool for the registration, tracking, and analysis of relevant forensic data. As a result, practices vary widely across Spain, leading to fragmentation and inefficiency. Additionally, the legal process itself, something that has been said before today and yesterday, present major obstacles. For example, a formal police complaint is required to begin an official investigation in Spain. However, in the vast majority of migrant cases, this is not possible because families cannot enter the Spanish territory or because they fear deportation in the case they are in an irregular situation themselves in the country or in any other country, European country. So these barriers make it extremely difficult to families to report their missing loved ones or to participate in the identification process. So in light of these serious gaps and attending the content of the resolution 2569 of the European Parliament and the recent recommendations of the Spanish Ombudsman mentioned by Patricia Bárcena in the previous presentation, a working group on the identification of deceased migrants has been established within the Spanish Society of Forensic Pathology. This group, made up of representatives from the forensic medical institutes most affected by the migration issue at the border, has defined three core objectives. The first one is the development of a national forensic protocol specifically for cases involving migrants, aiming to provide clear guidance on every stage of dead body management that you can see on the image on the slide. The protocol is now in its final stage and will soon be submitted to the Ministry of Justice through the Forensic Medical Council for official adoption, because as it also has been said earlier, this is a duty of the state. First, okay, thank you. Second, the group proposes the creation of a centralized forensic database. This would allow all medical legal institutes to input, track, and access unified data, especially regarding deceased individuals in the context of migration. Although Spain already has a database, this one, for missing persons and unidentified remains, it is managed by the Ministry of Interior and operated by law enforcement and is not accessible for forensic doctors. As a consequence, it lacks quality forensic data and does not include information on missing migrants unless a formal report is filed, which, as mentioned earlier, is most of times not possible in these cases. Third, the group is working in collaboration with the Argentine Forensic Anthropology Group, Forensic Anthropology team, and their border project, Proyecto Frontera, that my colleague Mercedes Salado will talk about it later. And this initiative aims to establish international channels for information exchange, enabling forensic services in Spain to access relevant data from countries of origin. One of the proposed solutions is to collect biological samples and information from the families at Spanish consulates abroad, ensuring that such evidence can be legally recognized and used in judicial processes. So I hope the information provided contributes in some way to allow members of the European Parliament to better understand the serious and growing challenge of identifying deceased migrants. This is not only a humanitarian imperative, but also a legal and ethical obligation that requires coordinated and sustained action at both the national and international, in our case, European levels. Only through political will, a strong institutional coordination, and a shared sense of responsibility can we build an effective and compassionate response to this silent tragedy at our borders. Thank you very much for your attention.
And thank you, Dr. Prieto, with that plea for legislators to make sure that this can happen. Yeah. And that is a job, I think, that we will all take away with us. I'm afraid we have no time for questions, and therefore we have to end this session now. I'm hoping that people will speak to the panel during the course of the lunch, because they had so much interesting information. I have been absolutely amazed with what is happening, and this explanation on this from this panel has been absolutely fantastic. I really greatly appreciate it from all the perspectives that we've seen here today, and enjoy your lunch.
Thank you very much.